Warning, the following video has flashing lights and also includes content that may be deemed inappropriate for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Susie from Emergency Encounters, a member of the Midnight Society science team, has already joined Mr. Barber from Bigfoot's Barber Shop in the Fox Den, as they have chose to awaken me from my slumber and need my assistance in hunting a Dogman. Yes, that was truly delicious. I was lacking some nutrients, and now that I am fully revamped and the shackles have been released, it is once again time for Midnight Lycanthropy to take a walk into the madness.
Stood up. I said, oh my god, it's a werewolf, and everybody in the car freaked out.
My creatures of the night, once again, it is Midnight Lycanthropy time here on LordeStarfox Radio. Yes, Susie, one of the scientists for the Midnight Society, and of course, one of my consistent sidekicks, Mr. Barber, are both already in the Fox Den, waiting for me to join them around the late night fire as we again burn the timber into the early hours of the morning. Susie, how you been and what the heck have you been up to, eh?
Hi, I'm doing really good. Just keeping on, keeping on. Thank you for asking.
Of course, it's always good to sit down, catch up, and try and figure out some of these very interesting topics floating around these days. Mr. Barber, my dude, how the heck are you doing, eh?
Doing pretty good.
Oh, yeah. Before we do head down to the good old Werewolf Square in Ohio, there are other areas in this, including Michigan, Wisconsin, land between the lakes, parts of Pennsylvania. Yes, it's a very large area called Werewolf Square. Yet previously stated, we're going to focus on Ohio tonight. Is there anything else, Susie, you would like to touch base on before we head down to Ohio? And afterwards, toss it over to Mr. Barber. Same question for him.
Goodness, no, I'm ready to head down to Ohio and hear about this. This is really fascinating.
Yep. Let's pack it up and head to Ohio.
These first couple of cases all took place in the early 80s, the mid 80s, and also the late 80s. We then will be fast forwarding to 2004 and touching base on a case that here in the future, the NADP, yes, we will have a massive documentary about this specific case. Yet, have both of you ever heard of Germantown, the Beast of Butter Street, or any of these supposed infamous terms that have been dubbed about this strange canine-like creature?
I vaguely remember some things about Germantown, reports of a cryptid there, but not much more than that, besides other paranormal discussions.
Yeah, kind of new to, as Mr. Starfox knows, the Dogman aspect of Ohio. So, For me, as soon as you say Ohio, I think of the Grassaman. So it'll be interesting to hear what's going on as well as Grassman.
Beautiful stuff right there. Another kudos to Jody Cook. A lot of people don't realize he was the very first person to ever use the term Ohio Grassman, and actually is the one that has been responsible for that term. A lot of people don't like to mention that when they just use the terminology. Cool little food for fact right there. All right, this first instance that occurred, keep in mind though, before this even happened, you had people reporting on Butter Street seeing this strange sort of canine like creature. There's a ton of corn all around Germantown and Butter Street, where you feel like you are in a horror movie, terrifying stuff, right? Late at night, you have this group of teenagers driving up Butter Street. To their horror, this huge canine like dog creature that supposedly looks like a werewolf comes running after their car. It grabs onto the bumper as their car now is swerving, trying to get away. As this creature is just holding on to it, it rips the bumper off. Keep in mind now, we're talking about the 80s here. I'm not really a big car enthusiast. Either way, I do know cars back then were solid metal, right? Ripping off a bumper of an old school solid metal car is a lot harder than a Honda Civic. They then swerve off as this creature is now holding the bumper. And when they get home, they tell their parents as to what has happened. Well, of course, the owner of the car doesn't believe his son nor his friends. They think they happen to back up into something, which is the reason the bumper has been removed. Well, starting with Susie and then passing it over to Mr. Barber, what do you think about that encounter?
Well, as a parent, yeah, I would probably question some teenagers as well as the validity of their story. But that's pretty fascinating. You would have to be terribly strong to be able to rip that off. I mean, I grew up around cars, definitely old enough to have been in the 80s, and they were not easy to tear off. So that's really fascinating.
But you're talking about, a couple 1,000-pound car moving at 25 miles an hour if it was in town. That's guessing on the low end. So, I mean, it would have to be superhuman if that's what actually happened. I wonder what they saw when they went out and looked, if there was any additional damage or was just the bumper gone. So those would be things I'd be curious to know about, because if they backed into something and it tore the bumper out, there's probably going to be additional damage from the impact.
Great observations for sure. That leads me to a question for both of you before we move on to this next encounter. Why is it you think details like this are left out? Is it just because whoever took the initial report doesn't think to ask these questions, doesn't care to ask these questions? Or, well, we all know, unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that like to leave out imperative details in certain aspects to then have something fit into a specific storyline or a thesis. Do you think this has anything to do with that, or do you just think it's poor journalism and poor reporting? Meaning, if I was to have covered those cases, I would be asking the same questions I asked both of you.
Well, then why would they leave out so many details like Mr. Barber was saying? Like, you would think the officer would go out and look for any additional damage on the vehicle and where the incident occurred. And my other question is, why would it attack that car? Was there something about that car?
Some more great questions for sure. I do know it's a pretty rural area.
Kind of just reminds me of, when you're out on a country road and there's a dog that really likes to chase cars and chases every single one that comes by. Maybe that's what its intent was.
Yeah, I'd be curious to find out. I don't know, Jody can talk to him or not, if there were, maybe that was the initial report and there's a follow-up report in there somewhere as to what everything looked like because if they were submitting it for like an insurance claim, then they would have to have pictures of the car and stuff like that.
If you think that one's gnarly, this next one is even absolutely more nightmare-based fuels. You have the local PD that decides to go up and down the streets of Germantown, telling everyone it's time to head inside, that the local wolves from the nature reserve have escaped, and they're worried potentially this could be some sort of threat to the public. Again, this is the late 80s. According to everybody in Germantown, all throughout the night, you had these strange bipedal, human-like canine creatures that were looking in the windows. They had glowing eyes, elongated snouts and ears, these strange raccoon squirrel-like hands, and we're trying to open the windows, we're trying to open the doors. Now, keep in mind, all throughout Germantown, there's still reports of these strange creatures. Before, I would like to hear what Susie has to say, and then Mr. Barber after. There are some interesting things here. I'm just going to spin the wheel for a second because I've spoken about baboons before. Jody has also found a very large baboon skull that was on Monster Quest, where he showed it in the middle of the forest in Ohio. Mr. Barber has spoken about seeing baboons before, where some bozo was doing stuff he wasn't supposed to. What if these were baboons, which would then be absolutely insane, that had escaped from some area? Baboons got those snouts. People that aren't familiar with baboons aren't really going to know their eyes do glow. They would have hands to be opening windows. They would be making crazy vocalizations as well, and they would be acting extremely erratic. Just something else potentially to add to that. I'm not saying it was baboons. I just find that to be interesting.
That is a really fascinating take on that. I don't know, it kind of holds some value for me when you were talking about that. I think it could very well be possible that what they said was wolves. Maybe they knew it wasn't wolves, or maybe the baboons got out, and they are incredibly intelligent. And if they had any kind of interaction with humans, they would probably attempt to interact with them again by opening windows or attempting to open doors. They're really intelligent.
They didn't make phone calls, but they went door to door, and they put out like a public service announcement on TV. They interrupted, which was how they would get warnings like that across. The encounter I had with one, and that was the case why this thing was completely insane, was because it was kept in a cage way too small. For them to tell people to lock their doors, lock their windows, that indicates they knew that it was more than a four-legged animal.
That's a really good point. Like, why would you tell them to lock their doors and their windows and not?
Again, excellent observations. Pretty bizarre stuff. Many things could be at play, but again, it's documented that this occurred. There was newspaper clippings that Jody was able to verify, yet there is also, unfortunately, some interesting stuff that occurred, meaning when they started to take all the newspaper articles and then put them into digital format, right, or into this virtual log, all the ones that they had cut out were not included inside of these virtual and online databases. And unfortunately, some of the original newspaper clippings were lost or destroyed. Yet I did find that to be pretty interesting.
Well, whoever controls the information controls the narrative. So I would be suspicious of that kind of information disappearing from public view.
Right, and it makes you wonder too.
I have one more question that just popped into my head. Do we think potentially this could be maybe people thinking originally that they saw these newspaper clippings, but in actuality, they never really did? For example, like the Mandela effect. All right, I understand some people think logos look differently and things. I don't know. When I look at those look like everything I've always seen. But you have people that remember events that occurred, but then they occurred at different time frames than they actually did. Quick overall question is, do you think potentially that could occur here? And then we'll roll on to this last one.
Yes, because my background in mental health and things like that. There, so your original memory is not what actually occurred. It's a memory of that. So it's going to be skewed to your perspective, and you can be easily influenced by others. So, if they just tweak one little fact or something that happened during that time, then your memory changes.
Yeah, and like Susie said, you can be influenced, that all of a sudden they tell you, hey, I saw this in the paper, remember when? And somebody else says, oh, yeah, I saw this in the paper, remember when? A lot of times people are just going to parrot that it made the papers.
You got 2004. Keep in mind, this is downtown Germantown again. We should all recognize this terminology by now. If you don't know, to the audience, Germantown originally was, yes, a lot of German immigrants that came into this area. We do know that German culture has a deep connection in the past with werewolves and things. It's pretty bizarre, right? Germantown, werewolves, dogmen. Not saying it has anything to do with anything, just stating an observation. You have these women that are friends working at a salon. I don't know if the people that are in the salon getting their hair done are friends, but again, assumptions aren't good, but I'm going to assume in this small little town, come on now, everybody knows everybody. Whether or not you're truly friends, you're probably all still gossiping up in there, whatever, getting your hair done. As all these women are getting their hair done, they see this very large, strange looking jet black dog or wolf or something. They're like, what the heck, walking on all fours. It comes up to the window of the salon in broad daylight and stands up, looking in at the women through the window. Well, they are at this point in time are absolutely mortified as to what's occurring. They claim after a period of time, they don't know how long, something seemingly distracted this creature because it whipped its head around, dropped down on all fours before then seemingly using momentum to push itself up on two legs and bolt around the corner. Keep in mind, Germantown is a small area.
That's really crazy. It would have been awesome if they would have whipped out their phones and taken some pictures. 2004, I think we had those, right? I just kind of was thinking, chuckling to myself, maybe he wanted his hair done. I don't know. But that's a crazy scenario. And yeah, especially when you have more than one person there and middle of the day. Hmm, weird.
Yeah, anytime you can get more than one person, somebody to corroborate the story. And even with just that little tidbit, I can't wait to hear what you and the NADP have in store for us to hear even more, because this one sounds like a kind of a teaser trailer for it now.
Again, though, my question for both of you is, sure, it's great we have a group of people that spoke about this, but again, no photo evidence, no anything. Why is this such a common theme?
You're seeing something that a lot of people don't believe in. You're seeing something that you definitely weren't looking for. And in this case, you're in the salon, getting your hair done or whatever. What are the odds that you're going to have 2004 flip phones were the more prominent phones to have? What are the odds that you're going to think in time to register what you're seeing and go, oh crap, I need to get a picture of this?
I was just thinking too, if you had like a group of people, everybody's doing their own thing, one person who thinks they see something and then turns to someone else and said, hey, did you see that? It looked like, XYZ. Then the other person is like, oh yeah, maybe I thought I saw it out the corner of my eye, because they want to be included in the group. And then it just kind of spreads around the room. Could that have been the scenario as well?
Great stuff for sure. Well, would you both like to chime in with any final thoughts and also let the audience know where they can find you?
And you can find me at Intuitive Taurus Moon on TikTok and Facebook. And if you'd like a personal reading, that's where I'm at.
No, I think we covered all the stories pretty deep. Susie had, great points, and as does LordeStarfox as always. And you can check me out on Friday nights live streaming at 9 o'clock on Bigfoot Outlaw Network, and also on Bigfoot's Barbershop YouTube.
Boom! You heard that to the good old audience. Yes, please do go over and check out everyone's links.
The other group is Pocatello Paranormal Research. And yeah, the links for Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Mountain Time. We do live mini readings and a paranormal topic on emergency encounters on YouTube. Thank you.
Yes, so please do go over, check out everyone's stuff. It is something that doesn't seem like a big deal, but likes and comments really help in the good old algorithm. Gets everything churning for sure. If you have questions for any of us, definitely get a hold of anyone and we will respond back to you. Mr. Barber, thanks for hanging out tonight, man. Appreciate you.
Oh, my pleasure, as always. Every week we get to hang out and chat a couple times, so it's a beautiful thing.
Susie, thank you as well for dedicating some time tonight.
Thank you both for having me and being so accommodating. You guys are awesome.
Oh, you legends, you. I do adore every single one of you. And thank you for hanging out tonight. Please like, comment, subscribe, share the truth to the algorithm. And remember, there are scary things that go bump in the night.